Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis and Mir Hashem. Today we will be learning Daf Pei Beis Amid Aleph. Before we begin our learning today, our learning should be a schus refuah shalema for our real Yosef ben Miriam Rezel and Mary Berchai Sarah. They should have a refuah shalema b'sar sharchel Yisrael. And our learning should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. And the seudah b'tzaru b'ashivya ha'imdim bein b'yam u'bein b'yabasha ha'makam yirachem aleim v'yitziyah mitzar l'ravacha me'afel la'ira mishibud l'geula hashta b'galo v'zman kariv and amar amen. The day that I am recording this share, just yesterday, we got the Basura Teva that 2 hostages were rescued by the IDF in Gaza. So we have to keep on being mispal that all the rest of the hostages should be returned as well. Nobody should be harmed. Nobody should be hurt. The boots on the ground should be protected and they should be safe. And Mir Hashem, we should be Zachor to the Geula Shleima B'Karev. Now, we pick up today on Pei Aleph Amid Beis. How many lines down? Pei Aleph Amid Beis. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines down in the Shulchan Aruch by the words of the Ramah Hagah. Now, before we see the words of the Ramah, we have to remind ourselves of what we saw so far in Siman Kuf Ayin Ches. So we're holding here in Siman Kuf Ayin Ches in the middle of Sif Beis. So, we've been discussing the issue of Shinui Makam. We have seen so far really the Shita of the Mechaber, and there are sort of 4 points that I want to remind you of. First of all, what we've seen is that according to the Shitas HaMechaber, when you make a Shinui Makam, that Shinui Makam breaks your seudah in 2. So you were in the middle of eating something, you're in the middle of a seudah. According to the Mechaber, it doesn't matter what you were eating. It doesn't matter if you washed the tilos yadayim, you washed and you made hamaitzi, and you're in the middle of a seudah where you were kaveh seudah alapas, or you sat down to eat an apple, but you made a bracha rishona, you're in the middle of eating, and now you got up and you left the house. You made a shinui makam. According to the Mechaber, a shinui makam breaks your seudah. It ends and terminates your session of eating. So you were kaveh seudah lapas, and now you got up and you made a shinui makam, your seudah is over. If you want to go to another house and you want to continue eating, that's a new seudah. You want to come back to your dining room table and continue eating, that's a new seudah. Since it's now going to be a new seudah, since you ended your seudah, and whatever you do in the future in embarking on a new seudah, there are 2 things that happen. One is you need to make a bracha achrona on whatever you ate until now. You washed the tilos yadayim, you made hamaitzi, you're eating a seudah, you got up, you walked out the door, you finished your seudah. You finished your seudah, you need berkas hamazon. You were in the middle of eating an apple, you made a bari priya eitz, you ate a kazayas of an apple, you got up, you walked out the door, your session of eating that apple is over. You need to make a bar nefashis. So right away you need to make a bracha achrona. Then you want to continue, you want to come back, and you want to continue eating, new seudah. You need a new bracha rishona. So according to the Mechaber, Shinui Makam is going to necessitate a bracha achrona on what you ate until now, and a new bracha rishona on whatever you want to continue eating. Now, the Mishnah Berurah pointed out yesterday that in this way, we see that Shinui Makam is worse, it's more powerful than Hesach Hadas. What do I mean? Well, if you make a bracha rishona, you make a bari priya eitz on an apple, and you eat a few slices of apple, and then you mesiach das, the phone rings, you get onto a long phone call, you're schmoozing with your friend for half an hour, and you will completely mesiach das from the fact that you were eating an apple. You hang up the phone, you look at the kitchen table, and that was a good apple. You know what? Maybe I want some more apple. Okay, it's hesach hadas. Because you are mesiach das, you lost the connection to your original bracha rishona. You lost your bari priya eitz. So if you want to sit down by the kitchen table and you want to eat more apple, you need a new bracha rishona. But how about bracha achrona? By hesach hadas, you're not required to make a bracha achroina on whatever you ate until now, then make a new bar preetz and make a new bracha achroina on whatever you continue eating. By hesach hadas, you could make a bar preetz, you could sit down and eat apple, you could be mesiach das and get on a phone call, and then when you want to continue eating, you'll make a new bracha rishona, but you'll pater all of the eating of the apple with one bracha achroina, with one bar nefashos. Now, we see that shinui makam is not that way. Shinui makam totally terminates the session of eating and breaks it into two, and therefore, when it comes to shinui makam, it's going to require you both to make a new bracha rishona, but also to make a bracha achroina on whatever you ate until now, and a new bracha achroina later. You're not going to be able to make one bracha achroina at the end of your second eating and pater everything. Why? Because that bracha achroina is not connected to the first session of eating. There's no connection there at all. You terminated your eating when you made a shinui makam. So shinui makam breaks the two sessions of eating into two. Hesach hadas does not. Hesach hadas only costs you the bracha rishona. So you have to make a new bracha rishona. But it doesn't require a new bracha achroina. Now, also, what we saw from the Mechaber is that according to the Mechaber, and I think I mentioned this already, the din of shinui makam applies equally to things like bread, dvar matzrichim bracha bimkaimam, something where you're mechuyev to come back to your original eating spot and make a bracha achroina. You have to come back for benching. But it also applies to dvar she'enam tzrichim bracha bimkaimam. You drank a coffee. You're eating an apple. In both cases, the dinim of shinui makam apply, and you need a bracha achroina, what you ate until now, and a new bracha rishona if you wish to continue eating. We also saw a halacha yesterday of hinichu sham miktsasan. What happens if there are a bunch of people together sitting by a table, and let's say you had 10 people sitting around and eating, 9 of them walked out, 9 of them made a shinui makam, but 1 person stayed by the table. So we saw a very interesting halacha. We saw that because they left 1 person by the table, that does not constitute a shinui makam. We can't say that the seudah ended if there's somebody from the seudah, if there's a participant of the seudah who's still eating by the table. He kind of anchors the seudah. And since he's there and he's anchoring the seudah, we look at it, we say the seudah didn't end. Since the seudah didn't end, you don't need a bracha achroina on whatever was eaten until now, and you don't need a bracha rishona to continue. That's what we saw basically so far here in Siman Kuf Ayin Ches in the world of the Mechaber. Now we're going to come to the Ramah, and we're going to see that the Ramah is going to be chaylik on the Mechaber primarily in 2 areas. Area number 1 is, we just said that according to the Mechaber, shinui makam is even worse than hesach hadas. Hesach hadas costs you the bracha rishona, but it doesn't affect the bracha achroina. You made a bracha rishona, you started eating, then you were mesiach das, you need a new bracha rishona. But you don't need a bracha achroina on what you ate until now, and then a new bracha achroina at the end. You could cover whatever became before the hesach hadas, and whatever came after the hesach hadas, you could cover with one bracha achroina. So the hesach hadas only costs you the bracha rishona. Shinui makam costs you both that you need a new bracha rishona, but you're also going to need 2 brachas achronos, because it's 2 totally separate eatings. That was the Mechaber. The Ramah says no. The Ramah says, yesh chalkim, there are those who disagree, and they hold that shinui makam is no worse than hesach hadas. Shinui makam doesn't require 2 bracha achronos. Shinui makam makes that because you were meshana makam, you lost the connection to the bracha rishona. So, for example, let's say you made a seudah ala pas. You washed the tilas yadayim, you made a moitzi, you're eating a seudah, now you walk out the door and you make a shinui makam. All right, just like by hesach hadas, if you're mesiach das after the bracha rishona, you lose the bracha rishona. So too over here. You walked out the door, you made a shinui makom, you lost the bracha rishona. Bracha achrona? Come back to the table, make a new bracha rishona, continue eating, and then at the end you'll bench. And benching will cover everything that you ate before the shinui makom and everything that you ate after the shinui makom. So these shittas don't subscribe. They don't subscribe to this belief that somehow shinui makom mamish cuts the seudah in half, and you need a separate bracha achrona on whatever you ate before the shinui makom, and a separate bracha achrona on whatever you ate after the shinui makom. No, these shittas reason that the shinui makom is no worse than the hesach hadas. That's one place that the Ramah is going to be chaylik on the mechaber. The next place the Ramah is going to be chaylik on the mechaber is that, again, in the world of the mechaber, the halachas of shinui makom apply equally to something like a coffee and an apple, which are dvarim she'enam tzrichim bracha b'mekaimam. If you make a shahakal on a coffee, and you drink a coffee, and then you walk out the door to go to the bismedrish, to go to the daf yomi shir, and you say, whoops, I didn't make a bar nefashis, you're not mechuyev to go back to make a bar nefashis. You can make a bar nefashis wherever you are. So over there, we can understand that shinui makom is very, very, very potent. Because once you walk out the door, there's nothing being mechayev you to go back. The bracha achrona is not mechayev you to go back. So once you walk out the door, you're out the door. So shinui makom is very powerful. Over there, the Ramah is going to agree to the mechaber that shinui makom is a problem, and if you make a shinui makom, it's going to require you to make a new bracha rishona. So if you made a shahakal niya b'dvaroi on a coffee, and then you put your coffee down on the kitchen table after drinking some, and you walked out the door and you made a shinui makom, now you want to come back to into the house, go back to the kitchen and continue your coffee. Yes, you need a new bracha rishona, because over there shinui makom is very, very potent. But, says the Ramah, by a seudah al hapas, by dvar matzrichim bracha b'mekaimam, over there, once you wash the til sidai, make a moitzi and eat bread, now halacha is going to force you to come back. Because for Birkas Hamazon, even if you walked out the door, for Birkas Hamazon, you have to come back. So shinui makom is not so potent. You got to come back anyway. So in that case, the Ramah is going to say, the dinim of shinui makom don't apply. You were mishana makom. After you made a hamaitzi, you could come back, you could continue eating without a new bracha rishona, and you're going to make one bracha achrona. No problem. The shinui makom is not such a big deal. We're going to see that the Ramah is going to say, lechatchila, you certainly shouldn't do this. But, halacha l'maisa, if you did do it, b'diavad, you don't need a new bracha rishona. You could come back into the house, come back to the kitchen table, continue eating, pick up right where you left off. Now, against this hakdama, let's see this inside. Says the Ramah, Pei Aleph Amid Beis, 4 lines down near the beginning of the line. Haga, we've seen the sheet of the mechaber. Now says the Ramah, V'yesh cholke b'chol ma shekosav b'siman zeh. There are those that disagree with the vast majority. The Ramah says b'chol ma. It's not really kol ma. V'yesh cholkim, there are those that disagree b'chol ma shekosav b'siman zeh, with nearly everything that we saw so far in this siman. Rak soivrim, these shittas hold, sheshinui makom eina yelek hesach hadas. Shinui makom is like hesach hadas. It's no worse than hesach hadas. V'lachein, and therefore, im shina mekayim lamakom acher, if you made a shinui makom in middle of your eating, you got up and you walked out the door, ein tzarich levarech ela lifnei ma sheroitz alecha. You only need a new bracha rishona. The same way hesach hadas necessitates a new bracha rishona, so too these shittas hold shinui makom necessitates a new bracha rishona. You lost the connection to the original bracha rishona. Avaloy al mashe kvar ochal. But you don't have to stop everything and make a bracha achrona on what you ate until now. You can make one bracha achrona at the end. So that's one place that this Yesh Cholkim argues on the mechaber. They don't agree to the Mechaber that Shinui Makom is worse than Hesach Hadas, and somehow it requires you to make a bracha achrona right now and whatever you wait until now, because you're not going to be able to pater it with a bracha achrona that you're going to make later. They say, no, there's no reason for that. When you bench later, you'll cover everything that you wait until now. Whatever you wait before the Shinui Makom, whatever you wait after the Shinui Makom, just like by Hesach Hadas. Furthermore, says the Ramah, they argue on the Mechaber on another major point. V'dafka, this is not what we're about to say right now, it's not an argument. V'dafka shelo yaniach miktsas chaverim beseudah. Also, of course, in this he's really agreeing to the Mechaber that Shinui Makom is not negeya if you left some of the participants or even one of the participants of the seudah at the table. Just like the Mechaber said, if you left somebody at the table, that's going to anchor the seudah in its place, and then there's no Shinui Makom. So says the Ramah, also, these Yesh Cholkim, they say, when is Shinui Makom a problem? First of all, Dafka Shelo Yaniach Mitzvahs Chaverim Beseudah, it's only negeya if you didn't leave a participant by the table. Ve'achal midvarim she'enon tzrichin bracha bimkaimam. And also, these Yesh Cholkim hold that the whole din of Shinui Makom is only negeya if you ate dvarim she'enon tzrichin bracha bimkaimam. Only by something like a coffee or an apple, where you're going to make a bar nefashos, and it doesn't require you to come back to your original eating place. Aval im hiniach miktsas chaverim, but if you left a participant of the seudah at the table to anchor the seudah in place, oy, afilu lo yaniach, or even if you did not leave anybody by the table, but va'achal dvarim shetzrichin bracha bimkaimam, but if you ate something that's going to require you to come back to the bracha achrona, if you were kavei seudah lapas, which is going to require you to come back for birkas hamazon, then afilu masher roitza lecha lachakach, even if you want to continue eating, ain't sarich levarich. The Ramah says these Yesh Cholkim hold you don't need a new bracha rishayna. The din of Shinui Makom does not apply to pas, because pas is dvarim shetzrichim seudah bimkaimam. Your halacha requires you to come back to bench, and therefore your seudah is anchored in its place, and Shinui Makom is not such a big deal. This is Shitas Rav Chisda. And the Ramah is not paskening like the Rambam. The Mechaber paskin like the Rambam, who paskins like Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes, he holds that the halachas of Shinui Makom apply equally to dvarim shetzrichim bracha bimkaimam and dvarim she'enam tzrichim bracha bimkaimam. But Rav Chisda is mekel. Rav Chisda says Shinui Makom is only a problem by dvarim she'enam tzrichim bracha bimkaimam, because you don't have to come back. And since you don't have to come back, Shinui Makom is a problem. Okay, now, before we go to the next words of the Ramah, where the Ramah is really going to illustrate this, let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah, who's going to spell out the background, really, that I gave you in the beginning of this year. Says the Mishnah Berurah is Katan Chafav, V'yesh Cholkim, Betarti Pligi Aldei Rishayna. Primarily, the Yesh Cholkim brought down by the Ramah disagree with the Mechaber on two primary points. Echad, the first one is Dehaim, these Yesh Cholkim, they hold Loi Matzrichi Bracha L'Mafreya Lo'olam Machma Shinui Makom. They hold that Shinui Makom never necessitates a separate bracha achrona. They hold that Shinui Makom never requires you to make one bracha achrona on what you ate until now, until the Shinui Makom, and then a new bracha achrona to cover whatever you eat after the Shinui Makom. V'rak bracha lechatchila kaidem sheyochal shenis. They hold that Shinui Makom only requires you to make a new bracha rishayna on what you want to eat going forward. The choshev rak Hesach Hadas, because they hold that Shinui Makom is akin to Hesach Hadas. V'loi k'mashe silek seudah rishayna legamri. Shinui Makom doesn't make that the seudah that you ate until the Shinui Makom is completely over. And since it's completely over, it needs a bracha achrona now. And you can't pater it on a bracha achrona that you're going to make later. No, they don't hold that way. They hold it's like Hesach Hadas. It's like Hesach Hadas. What does Hesach Hadas do? Well, it costs you the bracha rishayna, because you can't eat food now. If you were Mesiach Das from the first bracha Rishona, how could you eat food now? If you pick up food now to eat it now, you don't have a bracha Rishona. Why? Because you were Mesiach Das since you made the bracha Rishona. So yeah, Shina Makam is going to make you make a new bracha Rishona. But bracha Achrona, you mentioned. So the benching will cover whatever you wait until now. Since they don't see the Shina Makam as cutting the seudah into two, the bracha Achrona that you make after, when you come back and continue eating, it will cover everything. So that's point number one that the Yesh Chalkim argue on the Mechaber on. They argue on the power of Shina Makam. The Mechaber holds that Shina Makam is worse than Hesek Hadas. It cuts the seudah in two. The Yesh Chalkim say no, Shina Makam is like Hesek Hadas. The Gam, and furthermore, Svir Lahu, the Yesh Chalkim hold the Gam Zeh Shetzarech Bracha Rishona, even this that you need a new Bracha Rishona after a Shina Makam, who rak ba'imid besudas perois amashkin. That's only if you're eating fruit, a bar prehates, where that's dvarim she'enam tzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, or mashkin, or you're in the middle of drinking coffee. Over there, they say, Shina Makam is going to require a new bracha Rishona when you come back. Why? Because by those kind of foods, as soon as you walk out of the house, you're breaking the seudah to the extent that now you need a new bracha Rishona. Unless, of course, you left a participant by the table. Even if you walked out the door to go to the base of Kisei for Ktanim. Aval bepas umine dogon shetzrichen lachzor levarch b'mkoimon. But when it comes to pas, when it comes to hamoitzi on bread, or mine dogon, or you ate a piece of cake where you're going to have to make an alamichya, shetzrichen lachzor levarch b'mkoimon, these require you to come back and make a bracha achrona in your place. Lo nifseka haseudah b'hayitzia. So that is not going to, that doesn't break the seudah when you go out, because you're mechuyev to come back. Ve'ein tzarech af bracha rishona, and therefore by pas and mine dagon, they hold that Shina Makam doesn't even cost you the bracha rishona. Why? Because according to them, your seudah is not even considered interrupted. The whole vart of Shina Makam is that you're interrupting your seudah. Somehow you're breaking the connection to the bracha Rishona. But these shitas hold that when you're dealing with pas or mine dagon, which are dvarim atzrichim bracha bimkaimam, how could you say that you interrupted the seudah? You didn't leave the table. You're mechuyev to come back to the table. You stepped away, but you're mechuyev to come back. So you didn't interrupt the seudah. Therefore, even the connection to the bracha Rishona you didn't lose. It's only by perois or mashkin where you don't have to come back, so you left the table. You need a new bracha Rishona. And therefore, ki'ilu lo shina mekayma klal. By pasid mine dagon, which are dvar matzrichim bracha bimkaimam, these shitas hold it's not considered a Shina Makam at all. It's not considered you left because you must come back. Unless you were Mesiach Das. If you were Mesiach Das, you're going to need a bracha Rishona. Or Kidal Kameh, like we're going to see later. Okay, Eiskar Lechav Zayin. Avalim Hiniach, the Ramah just put in that these Yesh Chalkim don't disagree with the Mechaber on the din of Hiniach Miktsasan Bimkaimam. If you left a participant of the seudah at the table, they agree that that will save you from any Shina Makam. If you left a participant, even one participant by the table, then the seudah zecha not interrupted because the participant that remains there anchors the seudah in its place. And then you could go back and eat and drink, bali shum bracha, eat without any new bracha rishayna, even though you were only drinking coffee or eating apples. So if you sat down together with 10 people and you're drinking coffee together, and then 9 of you got up and walked out, you could come back and continue your coffee, even though it's dvarim she'enam tzrichim brachas b'mkaiman, without a new shahakal, because the one participant that remained behind, he anchored everybody in place. And again, these yesh chalkim hold that the only time shinui makom is an issue is by dvarim she'enam tzrichim brachas b'mkaiman. V'achal dvarim kasav b'magen of Ram Siman Reish Yud. When we're saying over here that if you ate dvarim shetzrichim bracha b'mkaiman, if you ate pas or you ate mini dagon, which are dvarim shetzrichim brachas b'mkaiman, if you leave somebody by the table, he anchors everybody in place. Or even without that, we're saying that there's no din, according to the Yesh Chalkim, there's no din of shinui makom when you eat pas or mini dagon, because they're dvarim atzrichim brachas b'mkaiman. So your shinui makom is not a shinui makom. Says the Magen Avram, there's one caveat. That caveat is, because of the Magen Avram Siman Reish Yud, dafke kishachal kezayis. It has to be that you ate at least a kezayis of the pas or a kezayis of the cake. The amalcha rak pakas b'kezayis pas kodim sheyatza. If you washed and you made a moitzi and you started eating bread, but you didn't eat a kezayis, and now you make a shinui makom, now you walk out the door, dinoi k'may peros. Now it's the same as if you made a bar priya eitz on an apple. If you ate less than a kezayis of pas, you did not generate a chiyuv of birkas hamazon. So the same way, if you make a bar priya eitz on an apple, that's called eating dvarim she'enam tzrichim brachas b'mkaiman, because you don't have to go back for the bracha achrayna. And therefore, if you make a shinui makom, it does constitute a shinui makom, and it's going to require you to make a new bracha rishayna. So too, if you make a moitzi on pas, but you eat less than a kezayis of pas, you didn't generate a chiyuv birkas hamazon. If you didn't generate a chiyuv birkas hamazon, then the pas is not dvarim hatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, because there's no birkas hamazon that you have to come back for. In that case, if you make a shinui makom before you eat a kezayis of pas, you're going to need a new hamaitzi when you come back, because it's the same as Paris. Therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, lechatchila, you should be very careful, that you shouldn't leave your place to go even from one room to another room. Remember, the Mishnah Berurah holds that going mecheder lecheder in one house, if you can't see the original place from the second place, he holds that constitutes a shinui makom. We said from the Heintek Paiskim that we don't hold that way, but the Chavetz Chaim held that way. So he says l'chatchila, even if you're kavei seudah ala pas, we paskin like the Ramah that there's no din of shinui makom by dvarim atzrichim brachas b'mkaimam. But he's saying, if you make a moitzi, don't make a shinui makom before you eat a kezayis of pas. Don't make a shinui makom before you eat a kezayis. Okay, so now we've seen the halacha of the yesh chalkim brought to us by the Ramah. Now the Ramah is going to kind of illustrate this. And again, like we've seen in the rest of this Siman, it seems very repetitious and very wordy. But because it's so complex, both the Mechaber and the Ramah are going out of their way to be very wordy and repetitious. So I get it from somewhere. Says the Ramah, 2 lines off the bottom, a little bit before the middle of the line. V'lochein, therefore. Now let's illustrate the halacha according to the Yesh Chalkim. V'lochein, mi shepasak seudasai. Somebody who's making a seudah. That means he's being kavei seudah ala pas. So he made a moitzi and he's eating pas. And he ate a kezayis of pas. So it's dvarim atzrichim bracha b'mkaimam. He's mechuyev to come back to his table for birkas hamazon. V'lochein, therefore, mi shepasak seudasai v'halach labayis acher. Somebody washed Friday night for the seudah. He ate a kezayis of pas. He ate a kezayis of his lechem mishnah. And now between the soup and the main dish, he goes out, he makes a bona fide Shinui Makam. He's going out to his neighbor, maybe for a Shalom Zachor, for Lachain. Mi shepasak sudasai v'halach l'bayis acher. Oy shehaya oichel, or if he was sitting by his table and he was eating his seudah, ukroi chaveira l'dabri imai, afilu l'pesach beisay l'makam acher. Somebody knocked on the door, and you walk out the door to go shmooze with him. These were the two cases given by the Mechaber at the beginning of the Siman, where the Mechaber said Shinui Makam is a problem. Says the Ramah, and the Mechaber said the Shinui Makam is a problem. You got a bench, and then you need a bracha rishayna. Says the Ramah, no. Kishachayzil l'seudah, when you come back to your seudah, ein tzarich levarech klal. You don't have to make any brachas. You don't need a Birkas Hamazon on what you ate until now, and you don't need a bracha rishayna on what you want to continue to eat. The hapas tzarich bracha b'mkaimai l'kulei alma, because pas is a davar tzarich bracha b'mkaimai. So since you're forced by halacha to come back for Birkas Hamazon, you're in the clear. So again, you washed, you ate a kazayis of your Mishnah Berurah, you went next door, you want to sit down and by the Shalom Zachor next door. You don't need any brachas rishaynos. You want to come back and continue eating? You don't need any brachas rishaynos. It's all part of the same seudah that you started when you washed on your lechem mishnah. And you're going to cover everything with one benching at the end. Miu, continues the Ramah on the top line of Pei Beis Amud Aleph. Miu, however, im hisiach daitoi. Let's say you got up from your Friday night seudah and you went next door to the neighbor, and in the middle of your seudah, you sat by the neighbor for 2 hours and you schmoozed, so you were completely mesiach das from your seudah, and mesiach daitoi. So then kishachayzer, then when you come back to your house, vaday tzarich levarech hamasher roitz alech alachakach. Then yes, you're going to have to make a new amoitzi, and you're going to need a new netilas yadayim also to continue eating. But you won't need 2 Birkas Hamazons. You'll cover everything with 1 Birkas Hamazon. Says the Mishnah Berurah, back on the bottom line of Pei Aleph of Beis. Oy shehaya oichel. The Ramah gave us over here, he gave us the Yesh Cholkim. Now he's giving us the original 2 cases of the Mechaber. The original 2 cases of the Mechaber were either you got up in the middle of your seudah and you went next door to the neighbor, or you got up in the middle of your seudah and you went outside your house to schmooze with somebody. In both of those cases, the Mechaber paskined, even though you're in the middle of a seudah ala pas, even though you made a moitzi and you're eating pas, which is a davar atzarich bracha b'mkaimai, the Mechaber paskined, you need to bench on whatever you ate until now, and you need a new bracha rishayna on whatever you want to eat going forward. The Ramah gives us now, after giving us the Yesh Cholkim, the Ramah gives us the same 2 cases, and the Ramah paskins that in both of those cases, no, you don't need to bench on whatever you ate until now, and no, you do not need a new bracha rishayna on whatever you want to eat mikanu la'aba. Says the Mishnah Berurah kan chavtes, oy shehaya oichel, or if you were eating and then your friend called you out and you stepped outside your house. Av shelo yashb'ina b'babazu shum ravusa. Really, the Ramah didn't have to write this. Once the Ramah gave me the background and the psak halacha of the Yesh Cholkim, he doesn't now have to go ahead and be very wordy and plug it into the Mechaber's original 2 cases. He's not teaching me a chiddush with this. Still, says the Chavetz Chaim, nokat lishna da ha-Mechaber b'sif aleph upasak lehepech. The Ramah wanted to drive home the point. So he gave you the exact 2 cases that the Mechaber gave you, and he's paskening punkt fakert in both cases. He wants to drive home the point. Now going to Pei Beis Amud Aleph, he's cutting lamid, says the Chavetz Chaim. The caveat of the Ramah was, okay, that's the halacha as it applies to Shinui Makam. Yes, the Yesh Cholkim argue on the Mechaber. The Mechaber holds that in those 2 cases, you need Birkas Hamazon and you need a new bracha rishayna. The Yesh Cholkim say, no, stop it already. First of all, there's no din of Shinui Makam on dvar matzrichim brachas b'mkaimam. And second of all, we don't even hold that Shina Makom would ever require a bracha achrayna. Shina Makom would only require a new bracha rishayna. So yes, the Yesh Chalkim disagree, but there's a great caveat. The caveat is, you got up in the middle of your seudah Friday night, you went next door to the neighbor and you schmoozed for 3 hours, and you completely mesiach das, you completely forgot that you were in the middle of a seudah. Now you go back home and you want to bring out the main dish. Now you're going to have to wash hamaitzi again if you want to eat bread. Or if you don't want to eat bread, you'll make a shahakal on your meat. So now you're going to need all new brachas rishonos. And if you want to eat bread, you're going to have to wash a new netilas yadayim, without a bracha, I think. But you'll have to wash a new netilas yadayim, and you'll have to make amaitzi. So Eis Kot Lamed, the Mishnah Berurah says, if you are Mesiach Das, Vadei Tzarech Levarich, bracha rishona kedin hesach hadas. V'achakach yivarich Birkas Hamazon ala koil. But one Birkas Hamazon will cover everything, even though you're Mesiach Das in the middle. Now continues the Ramah. Second line down, Pei Beis Amud Aleph, a little bit before the middle of the line. If you ate Devarim Hatzrichim Bracha Bimkoimon, if you washed and you made Amaitzi and you ate a Kazayas of Pas. So now we're saying that even if you made a Shina Makom, when you come back, you don't need a new Bracha Rishona. Now says the Ramah an interesting thing. The Ein Chilik, when it comes to that halacha, Ein Chilik, there's no difference Bein Chazar L'Makom She'achal Kvar, whether you're coming back home to your dining room table, to your original place of eating, Ubein Siem Sidasei B'Makom Acher, or if you finish your seudah in place 2. What the Ramah is saying like this. Let's go back again to Friday night. You washed netilas yadayim, you made amaitzi on your lechem mishnah, and you ate a kazayis of your lechem mishnah. Now you get up and you walk out of your house. Shina makom. The psak of the Yesh Chalkim is, since you're eating pas is a davar atzarich bracha bimkoimam, right? You need to go back for Birkas Hamazon. Therefore, shina makom is not a problem. Therefore, you don't need a new bracha rishona. What exactly does that mean? Does that mean that I could leave my house, go to my neighbor, and if my neighbor offers me a slice of prime rib, I could eat it without a bracha rishona because I washed at home, I made a hamaitzi at home, and I ate bread, I ate challah, so now his piece of prime rib is dvarim haboim b'soich hasuda machmas hasuda. It's pattered by the hamaitzi. And the shina makom is not considered a shina makom because I'm eating dvarim atzrichim bracha b'mkaimam. So now I can eat meat in his house with a bracha rishona? Or does that only apply to your own table? How would it apply only to your own table? Maybe I could say that if I walk out of my house and I walk to my neighbor, what I want to eat by my neighbor, maybe that does need a bracha rishona. I mean, I'm in a different house. I made my bracha rishona. I made my amaitzi in my house. I could eat in my neighbor's house on the smach of my original amaitzi that I made by my dining room table. Maybe not. Maybe you're right. I could make a shina makom. I could go to my neighbor, and then when I come back home to my own table, I don't need a new bracha rishona because I'm continuing to eat by my own table where I made my original amaitzi. But does it even extend to what I eat by my neighbor? Even what I eat by my neighbor, I can eat without a bracha rishona? Says the Ramah, yes. The Ramah says, let's read it inside again. The ein chilik, according to the Yesh Chalkim, when it comes to this halacha, that the shina makom is not considered a shina makom, and therefore you could continue eating on the smach of your original bracha rishona, ein chilik, there's no difference, bein chazar l'makom she'achal kvar, whether you're talking about the food by your own table when you come back after making the shina makom, where you don't need a new bracha rishona, ubein siyum sudasi b'makom acher, or if you want to end off your seudah by your neighbor. You want to continue eating the seudah by your neighbor, and you want to finish eating the seudah by your neighbor? You don't have to make any brachas rishonos. You could continue eating by your neighbor in a different house on the smach of the bracha rishona that you made in your house. You know why? Because the shina makom is not a shina makom. The shina makom is not a shina makom. We don't look at it. that you made a bracha by your table in your house, and now you're eating in a different house. It's all a continuation of the same seudah. Why? Because it's dvarim hatzrichim brachas b'mkaimam. Says the Mishnah Berurah, he's cutting lamed aleph. Ve'ein chilik ala elkoi. With this line of the Ramah, he's going back on the halacha that we said before. V'hainu, ba'oichel dvarim hatu'unim bracha b'mkaimam. If you're sitting by a seudah where you're eating pas, which is dvarim hatu'unim bracha b'mkaimam, v'lo yaniach mixas chaverim, even if you didn't leave any participants of the seudah by your table. V'ashmi'inon, and with this the Ramah is teaching me, da'af kishemasayim sudasi b'makam acher. Even if you go to the neighbor and you finish your whole seudah by the neighbor, gam kein ein tzarich levarich. You don't need any new bracha rishonos. Da'al smach seudah rishona oichel. Because whatever you eat by the neighbor, you could eat on the smach, relying on your original bracha rishonos that you made by your table. Aval kisha oichel dvarim she'ein tunim bracha b'mkaimam. But, this is a very important Mishnah Berurah, but, if you're eating dvarim she'ein tunin bracha b'mkaimam, kigoin peiros v'kiyotza bazeh, let's say you ate an apple by your table. You made a bari priyates on an apple, and now you made a shina makam. Well, by dvarim she'einam tzrichim b'mkaimam, a shina makam is a problem. Aval kishaychel dvarim she'ein tunin bracha b'mkaimam, kigoin peiros v'kiyotza bazeh, oy sheshoy samashkin, or you made a shaka on a coffee, af shenyach mixas chaverim, even if you walked out the door, but you left some people by the table. Let's remember, let's put this in perspective, okay? The Yesh Cholkim hold that by dvarim she'enam tzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, like a sha'akal on a coffee or a bari priyates on an apple, a shina makam is a problem. So you get up and you walk out the door, you made a shina makam, you lost the bracha rishayna. You go to the neighbor and you want to drink coffee by the neighbor, you need a shahakal. You come back into your house and you continue drinking your coffee, you need a shahakal. But if you leave a participant by the table, hiniach mikzason bimkaimam, if you left a participant by the table, so you were drinking coffee together with your wife, and you walked out the door and you made a shina makam, now you could come back. If your wife stayed by the table, you could come back and you could finish your coffee. Because the fact that you left her by the table, that anchored you to the table. So you could come back and you could finish drinking your coffee without a new shahakal. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, you know what you can't do? You can't go to your neighbor and drink coffee by your neighbor without a new shahakal, based on the idea that you left your wife by your table. The fact that you left your wife by your table only connects you to your table. So when you come back to your table, you don't need a new bracha rishayna. But to drink coffee by your neighbor, the fact that your wife is sitting by your kitchen table next door doesn't make that you can drink coffee by your neighbor without a shakal. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says over here. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Aval kishaychel dvarim she'ein tunim bracha b'mkaimam compares v'kiyotza bazeh. Oy sheshoy samashkin. Af sheniach mixas chaverim. Even if you left participants by the table, loy mahani, that doesn't help you. Elikish shechayzer lechabarasam l'sudasan rishayna. Only if you come back to your wife at your table. Avalekar lelishtois b'makam, but to drink coffee next door, tzrichin bracha lechatchila. Of course, you need a new bracha rishayna if you're going to eat next door. Okay, we're going to have to stop over here. No, let's do one more Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah is cut lamed beis. The Mishnah Berurah said that there's no chilik, and his words were, there's no difference between if you're going back to your original place or you're going to your neighbor. If you're eating a seudah, dvarim hatzrichim bracha b'mkaimam, it's Friday night, and you washed on pas, and you make a shina makam, you don't need a new bracha rishayna. Not by your table, not by your neighbor. You can eat wherever you want to eat based on the smach of your original bracha. Now the words of the Ramah were, Ein chilik bein chazal l'makam shachal kvar. There's no difference if you're going back to where you originally started eating. You don't need a bracha rishayna over there. Ubein siyem sudasai, or if you finish your seudah by the neighbor. Very interesting phraseology. What if you didn't finish the seudah by the neighbor? What if you're going to come back? Says the Mishnah Berurah, limud beis, siyam seudah. V'machal gam sham pas. If you eat bread, if you go next door to the neighbor and you eat challah by the neighbor, mavor b'sif daled d'mevar sham birkas hamazon. Very interesting. We've been saying that the reason shinei makom is not a problem by dvar matzrichim bracha b'mkaiman is because you're forced to come back. Says the Mishnah Berurah, but if you go next door to the neighbor and you eat challah by the neighbor, and you eat prime rib by the neighbor, you're entitled to finish the seudah by the neighbor, and you can even bench by the neighbor. And that's called bimkaimam, because you ate challah over there. Now, we're going to get into that more tomorrow. But right now, in Oiskan Lamid Beis, he says, V'machal gam sham pas, mevor b'sif daled. We're going to see in Sif Daled, the mevar sham birkas hamazon. You could bench over there. Kevin the sham who seems seudah, says you're actually ending the seudah over there. Okay, we're going to break here for now. We'll continue next time. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be making against Klai for all the Baruch should send Yeshua's for Fuas Parnassah Shidduchim to all those in need. We should be Zachor to see the Geula Shleima with the Bias Gael Tzedek, the Meher of Yameinu. Amen. Be well.